What's up guys, Scott Martin here talking all about crankbaits, but now we're going to talk about lipless crankbaits. You know, lipless crankbaits are one of my most favorite ways to catch fish. Growing up here on Lake Okeechobee, fishing the shallow grass beds like we have here, lipless crankbaits are absolutely deadly. One of my favorite ones is this River to Sea Tungsten Vibe. It's a crankbait, or a lipless crankbait that I've caught a ton of fish on. It's a 5/8 ounce in size. They make lipless crankbaits, other companies do, that are even bigger than that, up to 3/4 ounce. That's about as big as I'm gonna go. Sometimes I'll go down as small as a 1/4 ounce, like this little cotton cordell little lipless crankbait. I like this one anytime that the bait fish are kind of small in the area, especially in the fall. A lot of times you'll notice small little bait fish in the fall, small little lipless crankbait. Match it to the hatch. Here on Lake Okeechobee, we don't have a lot of small bait fish. They like the bigger sizes, your 1/2 ounce, your 3/4 ounce, your 5/8 like this we have here. You know, when you think about colors on a lipless crankbait, I keep it pretty simple, guys. Shad pattern for the most part, like you see here, your chromes, your chrome and blues, your chrome and blacks, your transparents like you have here. Occasionally I'll throw a chartreuse lipless crankbait, especially if I'm on a river system. You know, a river system like Kentucky Lake where you've got that kind of that green colored water or a little bit off colored water, I'll throw a brighter colored lipless crankbait. Now, when do you throw a lipless crankbait? Pretty much in the spring and in the fall is when I really like to throw them, focusing on. The wintertime occasionally, especially if it's a shallow body of water like Guntersville, Kentucky Lake, Okeechobee, some of the lakes in Texas, the wintertime a lipless crankbait is great. Submerged vegetation is a great time to throw a lipless crankbait. If you've got vegetation, let's say you're in 4 to 6 foot of water and you've got vegetation coming off the bottom a couple feet, I'll hold my rod tip up high and reel that lipless crankbait. I want to tick that grass. I want to kind of tick that new grass that's coming up off the bottom, and those bass are kind of roaming around out those flats and they react well to that type technique. The other time is in the fall when these fish move in the back of the creeks. They're up on those shallow mud flats. Maybe a flat that has a few stumps around it. I'll make those long casts out there and pull that lipless crankbait by. Anytime I feel like those fish are feeding shallow on shad is when I'm gonna go to a lipless crankbait. Now, let's talk about the type of rod. Pretty simple. You know, I've caught a lot of fish over the years on lipless crankbaits, and I've really fine-tuned it down to a couple choices. A 7-foot, medium heavy to heavy action rod, 15-pound P-line fluorocarbon. I love that. I've thrown 12, I've thrown 17 occasionally if it's a little bit shallower, but that 15 fluorocarbon really seems to make that bait vibrate just the right way. It kind of keeps it in the right depth. Very, very important. Now, let's talk about depth. You're not going to fish a lipless crankbait out in 20, 30 foot of water unless the fish are schooling on the surface. Then you can throw it through them. But a lipless crankbait is really focused in, say, that 2 foot, maybe to a 6 or 7 foot depth of water. If I'm in that 5 to 7 foot range, I'm going to throw a little bit bigger lipless crankbait, that 1/2 ounce to maybe a 3/4 ounce. If I'm in that shallower water, I'm going to throw 1/2 ounce to a 1/4 ounce, again, depending on the bait size. Now, rod angle is very important. When I make those long casts out there, if it's shallow and I'm trying to keep that bait up off the bottom just a little bit, I'm going to hold my rod tip up kind of high. And as I start to tick that grass, I'll feel that vibration change. That means that there's a little bit of grass on your hooks, and I can pop that rod, kind of snatch it a little bit in the water. It'll clean that bait off. It's amazing how weedless these lipless crankbaits are if you fish them the right way. If it's deeper and I'm trying to get that bait down, maybe it's a mud flat, I might hold my rod tip level or down and reel it kind of like a medium to fast retrieve. Play around with it. Lipless crankbaits, you're going to reel them pretty quick most of the time. Again, 15-pound test fluorocarbon, 7-foot rod. I like a high-speed reel like we have here. This is a Helios 7.3 to 1. I like a high-speed reel. I'm not going to fish a lipless crankbait on a 5 to 1. You're going to wear yourself out. So have some fun with it. Get out there. It's a great way to catch fish. Stay tuned. We've got more videos coming up in the series. And before you leave, make sure you subscribe to the channel down below. See you guys.